Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Ben and this is my fourth video. And as I mentioned in my previous video, I would kind of like to continue where I left after this bizarre, crazy, amazing experience I had in Kiev. These things that happened to me created so many questions that I wanted to research and to figure out an answer to. And it got me to kind of like plug into a creative side of me, which I have always had as a child, but kind of like I didn't spend too much attention to or use these kind of skills anymore when I over time with school and studying and all these things. But I really recently, like this year, I am able to connect back to these creative skills that I have always had and always enjoyed a lot. Because that's really, as I had mentioned also in the previous video, what this last year has meant to me. Like it got me to awaken all these new things that I, as I explained, experienced during my holiday. But it also got me to like reawaken certain things from my childhood and the things I have always enjoyed and have been passionate about, to have a comeback within my life. And like how those two have met each other has created some really nice results. But to quickly kind of like touch back upon what I had been explaining in the previous video, is like that this year has basically been the theme of the big unveiling, transitioning from really alive in the age of deception and being a victim to all that manipulation and deceit, into transitioning into a life of harmony, a new life which feels like also living on a new earth. And because I had this dreamish kind of experience, I really wanted to dig more into what dreams are, what the sleep state is, and learn more about like your subconsciousness. And a person that has always been intriguing me in exactly this point has been Salvador Dali. And the technique that he uses to kind of like get into a dream state, wake himself up exactly at the moment that he's kind of like getting out of it, try to capture what he was experiencing in that dream moment. And that's like the inspiration that he has used for many of his paintings. And I thought, okay, no, that sounds kind of like a nice little experiment to do. I would also like to try that. And I kind of like looked into different ways to use your subconsciousness to help you in artistic expressions. I was not really getting into the dream state or the same technique as Salvador Dali used, but I kind of used something that was more me in that moment. What I came up with, what the result was of like the first thing that I started doing, and I bet most of you have already noticed what has been up there above me, but that's actually the painting that came out of this first intuitive artistic expression. That's what I would like to call it. So let's take it out. So what I used is I threw on all kinds of different colors of paint, and I crushed paper and I threw paint over it, and I pasted it on, I glued it on, I threw parts mixed with water, and I blew on the paint and create some kind of special texture of the paint. And when that whole thing kind of like dried up, I tried to see something in it, something that things that I could maybe consciously recognize, and started to make details, like use the paint to paint out those details and to create kind of something that would make sense as a painting, as a story, as a visual. And another thing that I also did, I didn't do it in one moment. I kind of let it develop over a couple of days. And what I also, something really cool that I experienced is that this was the first time that in my meditation I saw the strokes and the mixing of the water, of the paint that I had been doing like the day before, for example. I saw those kind of like visualizing within my meditations, and I started to see kind of like the visuals in my mind, taking it further than what I was actually that I had actually done myself. And that's how kind of like the mixing of certain parts happened. So that's really how it got created over time. But at that moment I didn't really understand what I had painted. I just saw that as a picture. These were the things that I was able to see in it and to accentuate. But at that point I never really understood what it was that I painted. I will take it out and I will kind of like go through it with you, if I can maybe. So I really got to understand what I had painted here after a couple of months later, after this spring equinox on the 21st of March. And I thought it would be a nice idea to explain what has happened until that point, until the 21st of March, what has happened to me in my life, along like by kind of like going through this painting of what you're able to see here. So right here in the corner, this green cloud of energy, that's me in my light body. In this huge cloud of green energy, which is the color of the heart chakra. So it was like the loving energy that is surrounding me. And I'm standing on this cliff, kind of like looking over this huge ravine, dangerous road, the big burning sun over there, and the starry heavens with the light on top over here, with this dark, deep, hellish ravine where different souls are kind of like heading into the depths of hell. Maybe you could best explain it like that. And I was kind of like standing here looking over it and kind of overseeing what was necessary in order to navigate these lands and to see the path towards the light, towards enlightenment. And all these lost souls that are like floating here, like drifting off into without having any sense of direction, just being lost. And so the path basically consists out of 3 parts. And where the first part, treacherous landscape on the bottom, kind of represents the dangerous road that we are walking on in this physical dimension. Because around every corner there is like all this manipulation and deception that is designed to create fear in us. And if we kind of give in to that fear and start believing that these things are real, that fear is real, then that is like the downfall of your soul into these depths, in which it's really hard to get out of. And I experienced that by going through all these different layers of truth, because of the whole Great Awakening and QAnon thing. Like, I was not really able to be surprised anymore. Like, I would believe anything that would be presented to me, but the only frame of reference, the only tool that I could use in judging what was actually true or what could potentially be true until it was unproven to be true, were my own experiences, spiritual experiences so far. So I got to find like I found out about the Phoenix journals. So there was also this point that I started to believe that the whole QAnon operation, the whole Great Awakening, and was actually a psyop orchestrated in order to create even more polarization and creating these different camps in order to lead up to these catastrophic events and civil war, and which got me kind of on this path of believing in Armageddon that was coming, and like that we need to prepare for these times of tribulation, and that kind of got me on this path after that also to believe in some biblical prophecies and to figure out, because around the blood moon of January there were a lot of biblical prophecies that were kind of telling about these astrological events, that they were happening and that they would mean like certain bad things, like catastrophic things to happen with humanity. And after that I learned about this solar event, this solar flash that was prophesied to happen at the spring equinox on the 21st of March, where a lot of spiritual videos and bloggers were all explaining like big events to happen, and like that got me really on this kind of like fear trend scenario where I was starting to actually prepare for some catastrophic things that could happen to us then. So I went through all these different phases of potential truths, which all got me but they all ended up into like a bad end result, something to fear. None of them were loving and were feeling good, and until some YouTubers that I found, for example Brad Johnson from New Earth Teachings, who explained that this whole solar event that was like predicted for the spring equinox to happen, that was like completely incongruent with loving energy, and how like a loving force, a loving God would be treating his people like by killing billions of people and in these kind of events. So it was ridiculous to think about that as potential truths, and that really got me on this completely new track. And then I also found this other YouTuber, Case Sparks, and it's an amazing YouTube channel called Everyday Masters. And both the guys, Brett and Case, I really recommend that you like check them out. But what Case was explaining is that you have the fear train that you can jump on, but you also have the love train. You have the choice of what you would like to, which reality you want to remain in one where you fear everything, and then that because you feel it and because you experienced it that way, you're actually creating that reality for yourself. So that's happening. Or you choose to be in a loving reality. And that was around the time of exactly the spring equinox, the 21st of March. I got to learn about these two guys and their videos, and that really got me like to understand that all of those sources that I have been researching before that time, like in the couple of months from painting this painting until this the 21st of March, that they were all kind of fear programs designed to make us believe that all these terrible things are going to happen, to keep us in fear, to keep our energies low, to keep our frequencies low. And that's exactly what this whole first part symbolizes, this dangerous road which you will have to navigate, and where like around every corner you have the danger to kind of slip into this wrong belief that's creating fear in your life, that's going to pull you down and not uplift you, not enlighten you, not empower you to live up to the potential that we all have as human beings. And so around the time that I arrived till that date, it actually felt like I was stepping, because of receiving this information and basically what I've learned, that light is truthful information. So if you give light to people, you give them the truth. And that stepping through this light portal, stepping through understanding this truth about reality, that fear is not real, and that you can choose on which trajectory you want to stay and which train you want to jump on, that was exactly the secret to which will get you on the lighted path. Not any kind of like huge external event that happened around that day that completely changed my life and my view upon reality, but it was like this internal exposure to the truth, to the light inside of me, that it got me off of the fear train and on the love train, on the lighted path. And that's really like the end of like the last part of this, that you are like that you have been able to navigate these dangerous physical dimensions, step through the portal of light by understanding the truth of reality. And once you are through that portal, you are able to, it's still of course a challenge, because sometimes you feel drawn back to these to the physical world, and that you have like influence from other spirits that can kind of like pull you back to lower frequency states. But basically, you always have like the truth that you can stick to, and that you can have the faith in, that you can have faith that is actually the way, because it is in line with what you have experienced already before. What I got to understand after the 21st of March, that I stepped through that portal of truth, that portal of light, and that I got to understand actually what I had painted here intuitive, is the understanding that there are coexisting parallel realities. And that based on what you take as the truth or what you believe, it is decided in which of those realities you are existing. And as a consequence, the things that you are going to attract to yourself happening. The point that I want to hit home is that I really want you to understand this, what the truth around all of this actually is. And the loving truth that I'm currently believing in is that certain souls are reincarnated into this physical dimension on Earth to help and guide humanity through this mass shift in consciousness. These volunteers are really able to go through all of these spiritual developments relatively fast. That's basically because they have been doing this already for many times before. But in this way, by going also through it on Earth as a human, we are also able to relate, because I count myself as a volunteer as well, we are able to relate to the human experience in the best possible way. So that we can really explain it all to other humans. So the thing that these volunteers are meant to remember relatively quickly is that we create our own realities. By choosing to align certain beliefs, and that these beliefs need to be loving beliefs, of course, and change our habits and the actions that we take according to these beliefs. And once they remember this truth, that they have to integrate them into their own lives and start teaching it and showing the way to others. And this truth is that we basically all are gods in training. Humans are gods in training. And that we all hold the potential to become infinite beings with infinite abilities. We have the potential to develop these extraordinary abilities and to create everything our hearts desire. The truth that we are all connected to each other and able to co-create a harmonious and loving reality on this earth. That we are able to co-create this new earth. But in order to do that, we need to take up the power, our power, back into our own hands. And we should not give it away to others by buying into all these fear programs and the manipulation and the deception, all these different things that I have been covering earlier before, that I have as well gone through. The way the event actually turned out for me was that woke me up to exactly that higher level of consciousness, which was necessary for me to start manifesting my own reality. And it really did open this new reality to me. This new reality in which I started to have new goals and new or like reawakened hobbies that I already had as a child, but that I got like back in touch with again, and started to enjoying these new forms of entertainment by new TV shows that were in line with empowering ourselves as loving beings and reading new books and finding new sources that are all in line with that. And that's basically what I wanted to cover for this video. In the next video, I want to share some teachings of other people that I have come across, and one in particular very interesting person, of which I'm not going to give away too much information yet, because I want to really like build it up in the best possible way. But I kind of want to give like a grasp of the things that I have been learning in line with these loving beliefs from that point onwards. From that point, or like from the month of March in this year. That basically gets us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. It was actually quite hard for me, and I noticed that it is actually really hard for me in general to make these videos. You probably notice also me like not being very fluent in the way that I'm explaining my stuff, my stories, and I just continue when I'm making these videos. I continuously have this experience of blacking out on what I want to say. I cannot stick to any kind of storyline, and it's really frustrating that when I start preparing for these videos, I have all of these like really exciting ideas that I want to get across, and experiences that I have been going through, to share them, and I want to kind of like let it flow in a natural way, so don't prepare too much about it. But with this particular video, it was insane how difficult it was for me to kind of like get to stick to my story. And also that like in the end I really kind of like needed to read off, I needed to write it all down and to read off from what I had written in order to kind of like be able to actually finish this video. But it was really hard, and I think, and it's actually interesting because in the next video that I want to make, I want to cover certain teachings that I have gained about the laws of the universe and how we are being influenced by other spirits. And I feel that there is like that I'm kind of like something is influencing me and blanking me out completely in order to stop me from sharing what I know. And it's really strong, this force, because it's like I have never like experienced something like this before in communicating or sharing my personal experiences. If I'm talking to a person or just in general presenting it for a big audience, I'm very comfortable with it, and I really don't mind it too much. But just speaking in front of this camera and trying to get this information across has, and in particular with this video, has been really, really difficult for me. So as I said, that will also be a recurring topic of what I think is happening to me while I'm making these videos, which I want to cover in the next video. So, okay. Thank you everybody for spending the time to watch my video, and I hope to see you all into the next.